How can teachers create meaningful research through a lens of sustainability in high school classroom? What are the roadblocks?
Time.
Yeah. And resources, availability of resources.
I know I have a concern about my expertise in all the different areas.
And meeting that mound of standards that we need to get through.
Guys, and time.
Yeah. My name is Alyssa Weisenstein, and I teach biology at Marion High School. I feel overwhelmed by the technical lab preparation with students and the statistical analysis of data.
Hi, my name is Holly Dunderdale, and I teach biology at Marion High School. I feel overwhelmed by the time it takes to implement an authentic research project in a classroom setting.
Hi, I'm Megan Rice. I teach chemistry, and I feel overwhelmed by incorporating those science and engineering practices and addressing the content standards while at the same time incorporating like multidisciplinary skills that researchers would need to complete a project.
And I'm Andrea, and I teach advanced pre-calculus, and I just feel overwhelmed by making the mathematics relevant to my students and in their real world. And I feel in order to do that, I need to do a real scientific experiment to give them that real data, but I just don't have that expertise.
Together, we were able to create a meaningful experience for our students and ourselves, and that led us to this project.
In the fall of 2019, SIU River Region Sustainability Noyce Master Teacher Fellows program brought together 2 Title I schools, 4 teachers, and 145 students to collaborate on 4 action research projects within one authentic lab experience. Discuss the ecological impacts of sunscreen washing off into the water. And all 4 teachers are in the Noyce program, and we knew that individually we couldn't do this research justice, so we collaborated and brought all 145 students on board with this project.
Chemistry students investigated types of UV radiation, the chemical properties and structure of sunscreen ingredients, prepared dilutions of the sunscreen, and poured the agar growth plates for the sea ferns.
The prepared agar plates were then passed on to the 2 biology classes who shared the responsibilities of sowing the Ceratopterus spores and counting the number of germinated and non-germinated spores. The recorded data was then passed on to Mrs. Brzezinski's math students.
Pre-calculus students analyzed data to determine correlation, performed regression analysis using graphing calculators as well as spreadsheets, and graphed the final data.
Once each class completed their portion of the research, they created a video teaching the other students about their contribution. Students across classes, grade levels, and schools learned from and taught each other.
But wait, there's more. While students were engaged in authentic science research, the teachers were simultaneously conducting their own action research. We cared not just about what students learned, but how they perceived themselves as scientists. Teachers, along with the students, presented our experiences at Science in the South.
Doing a study that was done 1,000 times before isn't enjoyable, but using their information and discovering to push it further is interesting.
It's cool because usually you guys are the ones teaching us, but through our actions, we are teaching you guys stuff.
It was more than just a grade. It was to get research for something that was bigger than just a normal project.
I feel like research is completely within our reach.
Across all the classes, teachers observed high levels of engagement, students gaining confidence in their abilities to think like a scientist, and a greater emphasis placed on collaboration. We want teachers to take on authentic science research in their classrooms. This is how students become scientists.
This project was multifaceted, but today we'll focus on 3 outcomes. 1, students participating in authentic research. 2, teachers understanding how students view themselves as scientists. And 3, undertaking classroom research through the lens of sustainability.
But collaborating with other teachers and classes allowed us to divide the work amongst the 4 classes and made it manageable for us to be able to complete this experiment
We use the Ceratopterus fern because it is a model species with a short life cycle that is very easy for the students to observe the entire life cycle, but also an easy plant to care for in the high school laboratory, and students were able to sow the spores themselves and count the germination rate. And it's also a very affordable plant to use.
I no longer had to worry about how to set up the experiment or how to create the agar or even to teach the life cycle of the Ceratopterus fern. My students were provided with raw data that they were then able to analyze, make predictions, and even then communicate their results.
In terms of covering standards being a roadblock, there are so many to cover. When you have the next generation science standards that has science and engineering practices, it has content and cross-cutting concepts. Then you have the AP curriculum, which contains big ideas, topics within the big ideas and their science practices. That's difficult to cover, but a project like this, if you look, my kids were making models of things. They were looking and analyzing chemical structures and seeing how that structure fits the function of it. They were doing lots of calculations and analyzing. They had to teach other students how this worked. And then they also ran into roadblocks of their own. And they learned that with science, you have to make modifications along the way and how that works. So we were able to address a lot of standards with this one experiment.
After being immersed in scientific research, 3 statistically significant shifts in attitude were observed. First, students recognized the importance of knowing the ingredients in their sunscreen. After completing the experiment, more students indicated that they strongly agreed with the statement, "The ingredients in my sunscreen are important for me to know." Next, students recognized the importance of applying math concepts to scientific research. After the experiments, more students strongly disagreed with the statement, "It is not important to know math when practicing science." And finally, students identified ferns as interesting model species. After the experiment, the shift went from disagreeing with the statement that ferns are interesting plants to agreeing that ferns are in fact interesting plants.
My advanced pre-calculus students analyzed the data using a graphing calculator and Excel spreadsheet. They were to determine if the growth pattern was best modeled by a linear, quadratic, or exponential equation. They found those equations and explained their reasonings and results through a video. In the last graph here, we see an example of a student's work that shows all the growth patterns and the equations that were used.
The results from this were fantastic. If you look at the graph, you can see that the pre-test is blue and the post-test is red. And my kids not only improved their chemistry content knowledge significantly, but their multidisciplinary skills in biology and statistics and their overall research ability. In addition to that, though, the engagement was really high. They were all involved in this class discussion and deciding how to do things. Their confidence as researchers increased as they went. Some of the quotations I heard, one of them was, "Science is where you just wing it." And at first I thought this was terrible, but he explained to me that what he meant is that you have to think critically on your feet and make decisions because things don't always go as planned, and you have to know what you're doing and how to modify that along the way. So the outcome, the kids learned a lot.
How does this now affect our lives? We have found something. What does this mean? And of course, it came all full circle with talking about sustainability and the products that we are using.
Sometimes I have found that the best way to teach a topic is to let the kids discover it for themselves. And that's what happened here with this project in sustainability. I didn't emphasize that that's what we were doing, but throughout this, as the class discussion began with sunscreen and coral reefs, the kids started translating that into local waterways and lakes and their summer recreation. And what would the sunscreens be doing to that ecosystem? And that was a fantastic thing to see.